We're out here at Super Copa. First game, we played against a tough team. Fortunately, we didn't get the result, going 3-2. Our style of play that I'm trying to implement, it's teamwork, movement off the ball. Girls are adjusting to the style of play, but I'm still excited for this team. This team has a lot to learn. A young team, so they're getting physically challenged, which is a good thing. I look to see how they rebound tomorrow. We go again tomorrow.
Edition of the Inside Scoop. My name is Neil Crawford. I'm your host and also the founder of Anytime Soccer Training. As promised, I am searching the internet and searching the world for pioneers in the youth soccer space. And we're doing this series called Founders Stories. And I'm calling them Founders Stories because these are individuals who got into youth soccer probably with no desire to create anything and either saw a problem or an opportunity, or in many cases, both, and said, I want to be part of the solution and not just stand on the sidelines and complain. And today I'm bringing and introducing the community to one such gentleman, Juan Martinez. Juan, you're the founder of DKSC, right?
Yes.
I have seen your club and seen videos of what you guys do for a few years vicariously through my friend Brandon and his daughter Z. So I kind of feel like I know you already. But now I'm honored to introduce you to the community firsthand. And the purpose of this interview is to share your story, share why you do what you do, introduce you to the community, people who are interested in that area. They can reach out to you. Welcome to the show. So introduce yourself.
Thank you, Neil. I appreciate that. My name is Juan Martinez, and I'm currently the president executive director for DKSC. When you asked me if I founded DKSC, technically DKSC, no, but I founded Kicks. So DKSC stands for Defeater Kicks Soccer Club. Defeaters was an all-girls club here in North Texas since 1978. Their what do you call it? Their mission was to serve young ladies and do more quality than quantity. So they had 8 girls teams, and they only served 8 girl teams from U11 to U18. I founded Kicks in my backyard. That's a club that I grew up playing with here in North Texas. So when my daughter began playing, I just named it after the club that I played for as Dallas Kicks. The reason I started getting into coaching was for the life lessons. Soccer saved my life from the streets. Taught me a lot of life lessons that when I got into the workforce, I realized, I do know how to lead. I do know how to work in a team environment. I do know how to deal with adversity, the work ethic, rolling up your sleeve and just working. So without me really knowing all those life lessons, I said to my kids, you're going to play sport. You're going to do something. You're not going to just be in video games. My wife, we met through the game of soccer, and she actually became the coach of the family. So before we even had kids and we were dating, she actually began coaching my nieces. My niece that was a 95, my niece that was a 98 and 99. And when we married in 99, she was pregnant. My wife and I, brought Jordan, my oldest daughter, in 2001. My wife was still coaching till she was about to deliver. She 8 months pregnant, running down the sideline. And my wife would always tell me, soccer, you play. Why aren't you helping? And I was like, there's no way I would coach. I never wanted to because I didn't want to deal with parents. I didn't want to deal with, you're not playing them, you're pulling them out, the phone conversations. And so a lot of my friends growing up in North Texas were soccer coaches. So they were trying to get me to come and help coach their clubs. And I was like, I'm still playing. No, I'm not going to coach. But when my daughter was born in 2005, then I started in 2005. She was 4 years old, 7 girls in my backyard, literally in my backyard. And we started as rec, but I knew the landscape with academy and select. So we worked our way. So we started with 7 girls, knowing that all 7 girls are not going to have the same talent, are not going to have the same passion, commitment. They might pick other sports, loyalty. So my goal from the beginning was to create a team that could compete against the very best in North Texas, because I feel that that's what shaped me into the person and having goals, aspirations to be the very best. So that team I coached, it went from 7 girls to 60 girls by the time we signed contracts. And we only had one age group. We only had 01s. So any girl that came out, if they wore basketball shoes or whatever, it was like, okay, you want to play? Okay, you'll start on the third team. You'll start on the 14. Okay, you're good enough to start on the second. And then I moved girls up based off their level. My own daughter, she was a late bloomer. So she started as one of the original 7. I immediately moved her like in a couple of years to the 13. And my wife was like, "You're crazy for doing that." And I was like, she needs to fall in love with the sport, build that confidence. She moved all the way to the first team, and then she went to University of Tulsa on a full scholarship. That same year in 2005, I also had twins. When I first started coaching my oldest, that was in 2001, I had twins that were born in 2005. So 4 years after, in 2009, I started another girls team and another boys team. Same way. I can't put all of my eggs in one basket, and everybody was coming out, and I did it 8 years for free. So we didn't have the club dues, and the team that we had became the best team in North Texas. When there was no DA ECNL at U13, that team went through grand champions, state cup champions, regional champions. Now we're nationals, and we're competing against Surf and Hawks and these monster clubs. And it was like, here comes this little team. We wore the Brazil uniforms. So everybody was like stuck out like a sore thumb. But then my 06s, because now I had the reputation of developing those players, the best talent at a younger age was coming in. It was like, it was in traction, the style of play. So then in 2018, when DA was announced, I knew that, man, I basically told our coaching staff, we went from 7 girls to now having about 300 kids in the club. But we weren't really structured as a club. It was more just independent teams just working together. We didn't have the structure as fees and overhead directors. So when we merged with the feeders, it was because we needed to get a platform for our talent to players so they could aspire to be on national teams and chase pro careers in college. And me knowing that the way North Texas is set up, if you're not competing against those, they're going to pick you apart. And so I merged with the feeders at that time. Hugh Bradford was the director of coaching. He's still our director. So we aligned with our kind of why we do it and our philosophy. So that's how DKSC was started.
I already know where you're going. If you see the defense here, you already know this side's wide open, but this side over here, y'all can still yell for it. What type of players do I want? Okay, that want the ball. The last game, y'all were scared to get the ball. You have every right to make a mistake.
So let's go back, because everybody who listens to the show knows I love the details.
Yeah.
And I love to be able to picture something. So the first thing that happened is you have a thought in your head, I want to help my daughter and other kids develop. And you start with 7 kids. And then in your mind, if you go back, were you thinking, oh, I want to create a club and I'm starting now? Or was it more like, I want to create a team and we're going to play rec? What was that initial thought? And then what was those initial conversations with the original parents like?
So I started in August of 2005, the very first practice. And prior to July, I might have been told or called and basically from my wife, coach, start a team. I didn't want to coach. I didn't even really want my daughter to play soccer. I just wanted her to do something. But in July of 2005, I accepted the Lord into my heart. And that's when I was a born again Christian. And I basically said, soccer saved my life and it's going to be my ministry. So I did it more as a ministry, but me being very competitive, I was like, everything that I do, I want to do it to being the best. whether it's shooting pool, playing golf. I'm super, super competitive. So if I'm going to put the effort in there, I want to be the very best. So the very first meeting that I had when the parents, 7 parents, I sat them down. I had the Brazil uniform already in my bag. And we had 7, the very first practice. And I said, parents, the only reason I'm doing this is to give my daughter and my niece the same life skills, lessons that the sport taught me. And I told them, I wasn't looking to start a club, but I told them, I said, not all of you are going to want to come and train in the summer Texas heat. So you're probably going to be like, okay, let's make an excuse and not go. I said, you don't never have to tell me whether you're coming or not, because I'm always going to pick up players, because my goal is to go into Classic League Division One, and that is 11v11. Back then in North Texas, 11v11 at U9, U10, teams were already playing 11v11. So they were jumping the elite teams to get a head start. So I knew I probably had a 4 or 5 window to get as many players, but I didn't have an intention to start a club, because I feel like if it was in my ministry, I feel like if I did it for the business to start, I would have messed it up. I would have created 02s, 03s, 01s, and numbers, girls, where I looked at it and said, I just want the 01 age group. So we had Kicks Gold that started. That's what we named the 7 original team, Kicks Gold. When we had enough players to create a second team, we called it Kicks White. When we had enough to create the third team, we called it Kicks Blue. And then the last one was like Kicks Magenta. It was a mixture, and it was so didn't have no intention of starting a club. And like I said, 8 years, it was me doing it all by myself with help. Coaches, I had one of my high school buddies. He was a truck driver. He's like, I know how you played, and I know how committed and dedicated you are. I said, I want my daughter to play for you, but I said, I need you to come help coach. He's like, I'm a truck driver and I can't because of my hours. I said, let me do all the training. I just need you to be at the games. So that way then I'm at the bench, but letting you coach and get to know them. That way I don't have to bounce from one game to another game and they don't have the same voice. So my intention was not to create a club at all.
All right. So I want to ask an administrative thing, and then I want to go back to coaching as well. And it's going to be topical for the debate, and I'm using my air quotes that we're having in the social media group. And let me hit a timeout to say, guys, when we have these little these conversations in the social media groups, I always say it's actually evidence of our passion, right? And we tend to focus on the 1% thing that we may disagree with instead of the 99% thing that we in this fight together. So that's just a disclaimer. So let's talk about something administrative. You have, and I know it's going to change over time, but you have the 7 girls. Then you get enough girls to form a team. Then how do you get on the, for lack of a better term, youth soccer grid? And let me hit pause for one more second to say I interview people from all over the world. And if your story was in England, your answer would be simple. I'll put in an application to the FA, and then I start playing in local leagues at a particular division. And if we win as a youth team, then they give you an opportunity to play in a higher league. But in North Texas at the time, and then you can fast forward it to today if you had to do it over again, how do you go from forming you have enough kids to play to being on the official youth soccer grid? And then what is that? What is it? Are you part of the state association or what? The U.S. Club Soccer or what?
Yeah, here in North Texas, USYSA was the kind of only sanctioning. And so we had Girls Classic League, Boys Classic League, and that was the elite level. You had other associations like Arlington and Plano Premier, other leagues, but they were all under the North Texas. And so when anybody could start a team in North Texas, just the way I started in my backyard, 7 girls, and then went to 2 teams. We played in the same tournaments, same leagues and academy that everybody did, that FC Dallas, Solar, Texan Sting, all the it was not, you weren't excluded from any league. He goes, now at U11, when you went to go qualify, you entered a qualifying tournament over 2-week period. And Classic League will then, based off those results, create a Division One, Division Two, and Division Three. And there was promotion and relegation in those leagues from year to year. Two teams went down, two teams went up, and the buys stayed with the team. So after building all the 60 girls, everybody was always telling me, you're not going to be able to get into Division One again against Solar, against Texans. I was like, why not? You know, my girls put on their shorts the same way. We train and like win. So we put 2 teams in Division One. And after year 1, now we have 2 buys. Now we had a Division One buy and a Division Two buy. There was a Division Three that we didn't have a team in there. Our other teams played in Plano Premier League. So in Division One, Division Two, now everybody was coming to join because you had a platform. You earned your team as long as you retained 75% of your roster, then you kept that buy. So in North Texas, everybody would go towards those teams. That all.
But let me interrupt one clarifying question though, because in North Carolina, in order for you to join North Carolina Youth Soccer Associations and be in what we call Piedmont, the division, I think they have East and West, you have to be approved by one of the existing members. And you have to have a quote unquote recreational program or something like this. So in North Texas, at least back then, who approved you being in the leagues in the first place or being able to be sanctioned?
You sanctioned through your home association. So you register, you go through Oak Cliff or Grand Prairie or Plano or Frisco, and you put your team in there. And if you want to be known as an academy team, you just pay your 25 player, I guess, for registration or insurance, and they give you a roster, and you're able to play in any tournament and any league here. So you didn't have to get approval, and it was not excluding anybody. There was no excluding. Anybody could do it. That's what led me to having the success. There was at the red tape.
And I am going to super belabor this point because that's one of the issues we definitely have in North Carolina and different parts of the country. So I want to be super clear. In North Carolina, in order for you to be a sanctioned North Carolina Youth Soccer Association, which is a governing body that falls under U.S. Soccer, you have to be approved by the existing members of the association as one of the requirements. And I'm saying it like this so that folks who are listening to this, who are familiar with North Carolina, if I'm wrong, definitely write in and clarify. To the best of your knowledge, you're saying that definitely was not the case when you registered your team. Do you know if that's the case now that it's some governing body in, say, North Texas or Texas at large? Sorry, members of the North Texas Association or members at large vote to determine if someone gets their, for lack of a better term, their charter.
Yeah, when you say charter, like when you get a club or a team, is that?
Yeah, I'm saying you can't be, I shouldn't have said charter. I should have said sanctioned. So you cannot be a North Carolina Youth Soccer Association member. So your kids cannot get that card without being approved by other existing members.
No, that's not the way it was, and that's not the way it is now today. You know, in North Texas, nothing has changed from if I started it back in 2005, that if I started today, I could still register my team. I could still be a coach. I could still create a club. Okay, nothing has changed. The only thing that's changed now is that the clubs have platforms. So like ECNL, RL North Texas, and no, those leagues are only some of the members. So if I started today, knowing the landscape in North Texas, myself knowing that, okay, I can't compete and do everything, and there's no chance of playing those teams, then I wouldn't do it. Just my competitive nature, it'd be, what's the point? Like with Mile Ones, I used to run summer camps in my backyard, no charge. You know, these were the players that entrusted me with their development. My wife's a school teacher. So during the summer, maybe 2 weeks at a time, maybe we skip a week. The parents will come, they bring gallons of milk, cereal, eggs, sandwich meat. And basically, we trained in the morning from like 9 to 11, had lunch, maybe watch some World Cup games or some Champions League games, and then we go back and train from 2 to 4, and then the parents pick them up. And so if I couldn't compete with the very best, why do it? You know, so it's not the way it is now. Now you have platforms, leagues that exclude some clubs, but not the sanctioning.
Yes. So let's go on a subject that's topical, and then I got a couple more quick questions,
Okay.
and then we'll wrap this up. So, all right, you played the game, and the game was instrumental in helping you with a different life lessons. I'm going to try to ask this very as specifically as I can, but it's going to be a little bit esoteric. Then you began coaching. What is the delta of knowledge between the time, because you played and then you started coaching, from ground zero day you started coaching until you got all of this coaching experience from actually coaching? How would you describe what makes you a good coach in addition to you having played?
Correct.
Like what did you learn about relating to young people, organizing a training? Like when, even though you played, did you come in on day one knowing how to organize a training session, relate to young girls at that age, blah, blah, blah? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah. So my dream as a kid was to be a professional soccer player. I fell in love with soccer. I still remember being 13 years old. I was born in 73. So in 86, the Mexico World Cup, my parents would always take us back to Mexico for like 2 weeks for vacation. And I remember seeing Mexico 86 everywhere, plastered everywhere, and the soccer ball, and then seeing it on TV and seeing that yellow Brazil uniform, and me like having VHS tapes of Pelé, and it was the first World Cup of Maradona. And I was just like, every game, I was a kid, and I just fell in love with it. That immediately was like, that's going to be me. I want to be a professional soccer player. And I was so dedicated, committed, where there was a time where I obsessed with it. I told my mom, if anything happened to me and I couldn't play the game, I would commit suicide. I would tell her I would shoot myself because this is the air I breathe. This is my life. And people would say, that soccer ball is Juan's girlfriend. I was like, yeah, you're right. This is my girlfriend. So that passion of playing and watching and learning and practicing 7-8 hours in the summer from 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock to at midnight. And sometimes I slept out of school. My mom was like worried, and I'm asleep at the school because I trained so hard that I just fell asleep looking at the stars. So that passion actually made me resent soccer. Like I failed. So when I started going through grocery stores and even started going to like the nightclubs, like people would tell me, what happened to you? I really thought you were going to make it. I felt like a failure. So I didn't want no part of soccer. That's because my wife was the coaching. But when I did get into coaching, I knew what made me as a player, and it was ball mastery, my relationship with the ball, being comfortable, being creative, because I played a lot of pickup games in Mexico, coming back, playing at Inwood Soccer Center, 3v3s. And so then I basically said, okay, this team, I don't know if they really fall in love with it the way my job is to not kill that love. That was my first. So I told my wife's a school teacher. I just said, if I could just make every player individually better, the team's going to be better, because you're not going to have a weakling that can't receive the ball. So the first 4 or 5 years, all we focused was on, and I basically wrote this and have said this many times. We focus on making it as fun as possible over learning and over winning. All three are very important. I told the parents, you won't find a more competitive person than me. You're not. He goes, but my job is to not kill the fun. They have to fall in love with it. So we did a lot of ball mastery, a lot of 1v1 moves, and they did a lot of 1v1, 2v2 games. And so I think that foundation of them just letting the game be the teacher. I would do a lot in the summer because my wife was a school teacher. I was a life insurance agent. So I had the flexibility to create some hours that will benefit in the summer. I would take them to play pickup games, and we'll play pickup games for hours. Then it became, okay, the tactical, now the learning, film sessions. It became, okay, learning now is a priority. It's still fun, and winning's third. I said, by the time we're U13 and we're competing for national championships and going to Surf Cups and Jefferson competing, winning's first, because we have to advance to get the opportunity to be in those situations. And learning is still very important because you're still young. Fun, that's competing, because these kids now love it. They'll train in the hot sun. They'll train, do the extras, and their fun is really them bonding. And like that's really at the end what I think is, don't skip a step. It's like building a house. I never skipped the step of building the foundation, and that was their relationship as an individual and the player, the ball and the player.
Okay, so your coach, who was a truck driver, did he grow up playing?
He grew up playing, not classically, not at the highest level, like the youth level, but he did play. He was more of a, during the season, high school, he wasn't obsessed with the game.
So what did you see in him that said to yourself, I want you to be a part of this?
It's the same thing that I tell any other coach now. I could teach you. I can't give you passion and love for it. For me, it's the quote, nobody cares how much you know till they know how much you care. If you have a lot of passion, the X's and O's, to me, that's not the hard part. It's the other things like, are you going to want to train when it starts raining? Those last 30 minutes, you might get wet. This summer heat, Texas, and the cold, are you going to want to do that? My wife's a school teacher, so I always tell them it's more of a calling than really, hey, I played and I want to do it. So the same thing I tell those coaches, if you're passionate, that's all I need.
Listen, there's no starters on this team. I'm changing this. Hey, there's no starters. You earn your starting spot after I've been with you 2, 3, 4 months, and I know who's going to bring it. So understand, we need communication out there. Together, they pass back. Together, we pressure. Communicate attitudes and efforts. I'm not yelling on you if you make a mistake. Want the ball, want the ball, want the ball.
So, hey guys, if you're just joining us, I'm here with Juan Martinez. Juan, your title is the Executive Director?
Yes, I'm the Executive Director of DKC.
President, Executive Director of DKSC. We've had a wonderful story. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Okay, so Juan, let's go full circle right before we go. Help people who are not familiar with Texas, and then North Texas specifically, help them understand the competitive landscape, for better or worse, of youth soccer in North Texas.
It's one of the people will look at, it's like, how do you survive in North Texas market? And when I go through some of the conferences, the coaches conventions, the symposiums, and I meet new people, they're like, oh, y'all crazy. Y'all crazy. North Texas, there's no rec. Rec is dead. At 4 years old, they're already in the academy. About 7 years old, you're already traveling to Vegas, to California, these parents. It's 4 days of practice, weekends. Every weekend is like they don't have off. And it's like trying to keep up with the Joneses and a lot of private trainers. And it is like the environment, as far as if you could survive here, you could survive anywhere, I feel. And I feel like when we talk about other parts that they even say, they're like, I live there, I'll never go back. I'll never go back. The way I describe it to people that aren't in North Texas or aren't even in the SARC community, I meet some people, whether it's at our church or family members that we don't really talk to as much, but they live in other states. Oh, what are you doing? And oh, you do that for a living? And then basically, as we start talking, I describe the environment as living in the swamp, visiting the jungle, swimming with sharks, surrounded by snakes. You have to basically, like, every year, recruiting starts as soon as you sign a contract. Recruiting starts for the next year. It's crazy.
So, and we're in the no judgment zone. Do you have any reservations, especially when you start thinking about the trend of youth sports? Or do you feel like it's part of the culture? And how do you feel about, do you have reservations about that level of heightened competitiveness?
I mean, I feel as a kid, I feel like I would have loved the competitiveness. But I think it's kind of like it burns out too many people too soon. I've had kids that have come out to our practice. They'll say, "Hey, I have a daughter that plays with boys. She's pretty good." The coach tells her, "Hey, go to DKC if you want to develop." And the girl comes out to train with our top team, and she's left in tears. She's crying in the parking lot. I'm like, "What's wrong?" And her mom's like, she's hard on herself. It's like this level is, they've been doing this for 4 or 5 years, but it's like climbing a mountain. Do you want to start climbing, come back, maybe start with our third team? Because they might never come back. So a lot of kids get burnt out, the pressure of them to make that roster at 6 years old. It's not at 13 years old. At 6 year old, they're already, and leaving club hopping here in North Texas, it's the norm. It's the norm. People are going to leave left and right, and because, well, they're not going to develop you there. We'll give you this. We'll do this. It's a crazy environment. But I look at it as like, don't worry about what you can't control. If you could control your environment and you're developing, then I think that's going to be the magnet, because everybody's going to be like, they're doing it right.
All right, so final two questions. One is a quick one, just so we can get the geography right. Where is FC Dallas in relation to you in terms of miles?
So FC Dallas, Solar, Sting, Texans, and us, we're probably all separated probably about 15-mile radius. We're on top of each other.
So did that cause, I don't want to say the word haterade, as we say in the community, but did you get a lot of pushback because you were in this area that's hyper competitive, and you may have been at one point the small kid on the block?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely when we were kicks coming up, I would hear parents say that some coaches would say, God, I just wish kicks died. It was because we were taking their players because of our training environment. Plus, we had no fees. We had no club dues. It was just pass the hat. This is what tournament we're doing. So it was kind of like he's not charging and he's beating us. And then these girls, retention was my key, my focus, because teaching a style of play is not easy. So when we win and then beat them, it was a lot of hate. It becomes Hispanics and the racial slurs, but it was very, very, our girls now are 23 years old, 22, and they learn real quick. It was like, and I just told them the competitiveness, sore losers brings the worst in us.
Did you ever feel down personally? Like, man, this really hurt me this time?
I never really did. Like, I never took it personal. I never really did. I've always been of the mindset of there's people that think a certain way or say words, and it never bothered me. My inner circle, if any of those had left, that would bother me because we build a relationship. We spend countless, and that's where it becomes like, I think nowadays everybody's like in the business. It is a business. I'm not gonna say it's not, because it is, but I never took anything personal. I still don't. Like people. I run into people that aren't even in the soccer world, but let's say I'll go to a funeral and I'll run into some high school buddies of mine that I haven't seen in 10, 12, 15 years. And they're like, man, proud of you, man. All you're doing for the kids, man, we hear it blowing up, proud of you. And then they'll say, he goes, but man, let me tell you something. You have a lot of haters? And I was like, of course, I know I do. My wife is like, Juan, what do you do? Because I was like, listen, if you're not doing something good, that's you're not gonna have that. So to me, I take that as my fuel. So I never take it personal.
Yes, and I totally understand that. So we're wrapping this up. Your nephew, I'm making him up, 18 years old. Juan, I want to start a club in North Texas. I got about 5 or 6 kids. I'm gonna start training them. What are some of the biggest challenges that he's gonna face, and what are some of the nuggets of wisdom you're gonna share with him?
First, I would just tell him why. Why is he getting to soccer? If it's, hey, I see it as I love the game and I want to give back, and I could see myself earning some extra income, then I look at it as like, okay, but some of the obstacles I would tell them is that your players are going to leave. Like, you don't have the platform, they're going to leave. So focus on certain age groups. Like, if it's you're getting a team from 7 years old, okay, maybe have a plan that at 12 you're feeding into another club. It goes because those kids, in my opinion, the ones that want it, the ones that are very passionate about it, don't hold them back. Don't hold them back. I've been on the side of being a small independent team, and people will say, you're holding them back. You're holding them back. Holding them back from what? We're competing in the same league. I say, we're playing against the college coaches are all lined up recruiting our girls. Why am I holding them back? But now, if you're not in those platforms and you have a talented player, by the time they're you 17 and you held them, it might be too late. So always put the player first. What's best for the player? But that's the advice I would get them, that because of the platforms, align yourself with somebody that aligns with your philosophy, with your vision, and then partner to do what's best for the players.
All right. So this is the final question. It's out of order, but it's specific. I like ending on an inspirational note, but we're going to end on an administrative note. How many days a week are your kids generally training at the various levels?
Yeah, ECNL teams, our ECNL teams go 3 days out of the week. They do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Monday's usually reserved for recovery after, especially double fixtures or games. Sometimes they do video on that Monday, but the younger groups that I'm involved with, the 10s, the 11s, the 12s, the 13s, those teams do Monday through Thursday. They do all 4 days. 1 day, 2 days is very technical. And when I just got back into coaching this past year. So I had retired from coaching. I coached from 2005 and I retired in 2020 to run the club. 3 years I was out of coaching. I got back into coaching this year. And immediately I saw, technically, y'all behind. So it's like my wife goes to tutoring Saturday with her students. She stays on Thursday to tutor her students. So I looked at it and says, they're not going to get better unless they get on the ball. Now, they get on the ball and go to a trainer, and the trainer might just have them with an hour with the head down ball mastery. I'm not saying ball mastery is not important, but that's all they're doing. Are they receiving with the proper foot? Okay. Are they working on, proper pace of the pass, so it doesn't go out of bounds. So it gets there. All these things, first touch, settling the ball. So I was like, we have to. So we basically said, listen, if you have a private trainer and you're going to, no problem, but we're doing 4 days a week. And Monday, Wednesdays are meant for the technical side.
Man, that is very, very interesting. And that's very, very informative. And I can see your passion. And you're putting the kids first in the sense that you're saying this is the programming that they need based on my observations. I'm not just picking a number out of the hat, like, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, because that's what works for everybody's schedule per se. Or, and I'm going to put one of my clubs on the hot seat saying, I'm not receiving a random email about a finishing clinic that my child can sign up for. If you haven't seen it, that's an issue, right? So it's sort of like you're looking at, we got a limited amount of time, a finite amount of time to get these kids at the level. And there's a sense of urgency there. And we might overload on training sessions when they're younger, especially with those foundational skills. They need less recovery time, but we got to get those contact hours in. And it has to have that attention to detail that's going to translate to the game. So, Juan, I appreciate all that you do. We're going to put this in the podcast, obviously. We're going to put this in the YouTube channel, and we're going to put this on the Facebook group. And I always tell the members of the Facebook group that you can't cover everything in an interview.
Right.
This is an opportunity to reach out to you directly and have a conversation. There are a lot of folks out here who are starting, a lot of adults who are starting their soccer journey, and they have questions about getting started. You'll be a valuable resource to share some wisdom with you guys, with them. Hey, this is Neil Crawford, founder of Anytime Soccer Training, and also the host of the Inside Scoop. I just sat down with Juan Martinez, the president and executive director, and now coach at DKSC. Let's get better together.
Awesome. Thank you, Neil.